Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the WICCI ESG Council, that is Women's India Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Environmental, Social and Governance Council. It focuses on promoting sustainability, ethical governance, and social responsibility across industries. It aims to drive positive change through policy advocacy, leadership, and collaboration. The Council empowers professionals to shape impactful ESG initiatives and foster a more responsible business environment. An impactful initiative by the WICCI ESG Council designed to move from ESG awareness to practical implementation. Under this process, each month online awareness workshops are being organized. Today's workshop topic is ESG and SDGs for Responsible Institution, facilitated by Meenakshi VJ, Karnataka State President of WICCI ESG Council. This session will provide a practical framework to implement SDG ESG in institutions, businesses, and leadership practices. Join us and take the first step towards responsible, sustainable action. Welcome, Meenakshi, and the floor is all yours now.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So a very good evening to everyone who's joined and to have taken time to join at this time of the day and being a Friday. So quickly before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to introduce myself. So not just in terms of my role, but also in terms of what brings me here today. Right. So I come from like an engineering background and with over about 15 years of experience in building products, driving innovation and leading teams. Over the years, my focus has largely been on to delivering efficiency, performance and business value. But however, as I've been progressing in my career, it's and also in life, right? So I just begin to realize and reflect more deeply on some fundamental question, right? Are we building solutions only for today, or are we building it very responsibly for tomorrow? So as professionals, we must always make decisions on a daily basis, right? Take design decisions or cost decisions or delivery decisions. Take all that very responsibly. So, and increasingly, the more you think, the more I've had this realization that each of these decisions has had like a larger impact beyond like just business outcomes. And sustainability for me is not just like an environmental concept, but it is about creating a long-term value and making responsible choices and ensuring that progress today does not come at the cost of future generations. So on a very personal level, so this perspective becomes even more real, the world that we're shaping through our professional decisions and like as a parent also. So that's what really leads me into exploring what ESG and SDGs more deeply. So not as a theoretical framework, but as a practical tool. So this has actually helped me guide better and take better decisions in like our organizations, right? So in today's session is not just about like a compliance or a theory, and but it's all about understanding how global sustainability goals translates into business reality and what role organizations like ours play, and most importantly, what role we as individuals and as leaders play in this journey. So it's not just for like one group of person, but it is for all of us. It's not just for responsible institutions, but it's for all of us because we are the people making these institutions, right? So sustainability has become like a strategic priority at the highest level for organizations. So it's no more like a choice like what it was previously. And now it's more like you will have to pick this up, right? So if you want to grow as an organization, your ESG and SDG or sustainability in general, because we've not really touched base on ESG and SDG, is the foundation of all of our organizations, be it institutional, be it an educational body, be it like any business institute for that matter, right? So in India, so regulatory bodies like the Securities and Exchange Board of India are mandating ESG disclosures. So it's, like I said, it's no longer optional. It is expected by investors, by customers, and by our society itself. So if you just stop by, I think even like an age-old person will say, why are you wasting this? And that's a very valid question for us to pick up, right? So with that, so we'll talk about SDGs. So SDGs is, like I said, it's no more like, it's no more an optional thing. We have something called as 7 global goals that is actually set by the United Nations in 2015. It's not something that just came up today. We are already in 2026, and the target year to achieve all this is 2030, which is just a few years now. And now the focus is they are going to address global challenges like poverty, climate change, and inequality. That's from 2015. So by 2030, we should have achieved all of this. And just quick examples from India would be the Swachh Bharat mission that our government has been focusing on, clean sanitization, digital India, digital inclusion. So now nothing works without GPay, right? So wherever we go, even if we go to like a very small shop, GPay is there, even if it's for 1 rupee, 2 rupee, 10 rupees, right? So that's where we are growing towards. And it's not something that happens in isolation. I'll talk about how all of this is interconnected and is integrated. So the progress in one affects the other. It's not just the progress. So if you are not even progressing, that's also going to affect you negatively. So this requires like a systems thinking approach to it, and no siloed approach. You might just think as a business, I'm doing something as an individual and I might not affect somebody else, but that's not true. And we all know that even from forget about organization, even if it's an organism or an animal or anything for that matter on earth is going to give you another effect on somebody else or something else, right? So we need to understand that any decision that is being taken is going to affect someone else. And the best, and if you're going to take a positive approach towards making a better decision, then you're positively impacting our society, right? So now, with that, just an example is, so since I'm from Bangalore, so the rapid growth in Bangalore here is we're having economic growth and water crisis with each other. Just because we've been, urbanizing at a larger scale, we have a lot of water crisis here. And now we're not saying that economic growth is a bad thing. It is a good thing. But if you're not focusing on what is needed, like, we cannot just get rid of all the lakes and all the water bodies and then start making apartments. Now that's negatively impacting us with water crisis. Now, even if you have those 10-story buildings and you're not able to provide water for all of them, they're not going to be living here anymore. So now that's a negative impact of the rapidly growing economic growth. And then that clearly shows the link, right, between your development and sustainability. So that's why you would typically hear the term sustainable growth. So whatever you're doing, you will have to move towards having a sustainable growth. Yeah. So with this, so SDGs are, so these are goals, and the Sustainable Development Goals are 17 of them. Right? And they could typically broadly be classified. So if you've seen an ESG report, they would not talk about all 17 because, for most of us, this is 17 of them is what's being identified. But for an organization, it might not need that they'll have to include all 17 of them into their ESG reports, right? So they will group them into people, planet, prosperity, right? And focus onto relevant goals and not all of them. So for example, these are prioritized. So you can see number 1, 2, 3. So that one is no poverty. It's the topmost priority. And that falls into people. And 2 is zero hunger, which is also falling into people, right? Similarly, there's going to be planet. So when you talk about planet, you'll talk about, say, you could talk about affordable and clean energy, that's going to be on the planet. Climate action is on the planet. Life below water, life on land, right? And prosperity could be on sustainable cities and communities, or it could also be on innovation. So these are areas that we could, companies or organizations typically pick out based on the businesses that they run, right? And the focus is not on everything. So the focus could be on some of them, which is most relevant to your goals, right? So for in manufacturing, it's mostly like the SDG 12 and 13. So SDG 12 is responsible consumption and production. What is responsible? Just because I am going to manufacture something, I'm not just going to manufacture like, say everything is demand versus supply. Again, demand, you will have to understand that if your demand is only for 100 units, and if you're going to just make 1,000 of them, neither you're going to be profitable, and neither is you're just adding things to the landfill, right? So you will have to think that's what we say as sustainable growth. Just about what is required. So that's the focus. And for IT, say, could be SDG 4 and 4 for quality education. And it could also be industry innovation and infrastructure. So that they don't have to talk about, so if IT is only going to be focusing on these two areas. So they don't have to focus on, say, life on land. Yeah, it is not something that is relevant to them. But most of or all of the organizations will fall under these 17 goals. So you pick up what is yours. Most of those was kind of self-explanatory. When you have some time, you could deep dive into each of them. But these are our 17 sustainable development goals, right? Okay, so now what is ESG? So ESG is basically a business evaluation framework, which is actually focusing on non-financial risks and opportunities. So you're not going to be talking about numbers of how much, what is your valuation and all that. That's not what you're going to focus on, right? So you are going to, so for example, say companies who are ignoring environmental norms will actually face penalties, or they could have a loss of reputation also, which could indirectly affect your profitability, right? So that's what ESG is all about. ESG stands for environmental, social, and governance. And so this framework is to basically measure the business impact. Either it's going to be positive, it's going to be negative, and these are not just it's not just to capture that, okay, I am also, I'm also having an ESG report. That's not what it is. It's a place where you're going to talk about, investors also are very, very interested these days on the ESG report, and financial decisions are also taken based on the ESG reports for the organization. So it's no more like a choice, like I said, right? So ESG pillars, so like I said, ESG, E stands for environment, S for social, G for governance. And so environment could include like climate and the resources. Social is the people, the communities where we live in. Governance is the ethics and the leadership, which impacts our businesses. So environmental emissions or energy, right? So like an example for that could be, so for example, Tata Power, right, is using a lot of renewable. They have been investing a lot into renewable sources of energy. So now that's a very positive impact. So maybe you might have a huge initial investment to do this, but companies are coming forward to do this because they understand, they value that environment comes first, right? Second, social. So the example could be, so Infosys, for example, is running an employee reskilling training. It is also running rural trainings, right? And how do they do it? They do it digitally. So there's so many different ways of, that's not the only organization, just giving you a lot of organization, including our government, who's taking so much positive steps into upskilling our communities, right? And then an example for governance or ethics. So many of our banks, for example, they have to be aligned to governance, because they understand that any issues with respect to ethics can lead them to a lot of penalty issues, right? And obviously, once you have, it's not just about money. Once you lose your reputation is everything for a business, right? So we understand that, and most organizations will follow ESG. And why does this even matter? So ESG is directly impacts our investment, reputation, and also access to capital depends on ESG. So like I said, investors are just looking at your ESG report and taking decisions. So it's okay to say that you're still learning. It's okay to say that, you've not started taking enough steps, but it's also very important that the investors see that you are valuing this, you're taking this into consideration, put that part of your strategic initiatives and say, okay, so probably it's not something that I'm doing today, but this is something that I want to do, right? So some of this is very it directly impacts your businesses, right? So there was an example I could give you with respect to if you've heard of Vedanta Limited, right, which faced issues due to environmental concerns. So there are so many examples where some of these small things that you think is small is not small anymore, and it could directly impact your business, right? Now, what's the relationship between the SDG and ESG, right? So SDGs is basically what the world needs, right? So now when you're saying what the world needs, so we'll go back to our slide and see this is what the world needs. It doesn't need poverty. They're saying we want to get rid of hunger. We want like good health and well-being, because we understand the top three. So if you don't have the money to buy anything, you're not going to be able to buy any of the products that the business is going to make, right? Zero hunger, of course. If you're going to be hungry, then that's the basic, right? No food, clothing, shelter, then means you're not going to be adding any profitability for anybody, including yourself, right? So that's something that we look for. Good health. So imagine if we are just going on investing on ourselves, if our health is not well, we are not going to be doing any other investments. All we're going to do is we're going to spend our money in fixing ourselves, right? So companies understand that these are basic, and we will have to indirectly, if we're doing all of this, we're going to have happy, healthy humans who will positively, raise the bar for growth of all of our organizations. So that's basic. So that's why this matters, right? So SDGs is what the world needs, versus ESG is how the companies are responding towards this, right? So this is ESG is basically the execution, and SDG is the destination of where we want to go. So SDG, for example, SDG 13 is on climate action, right? So what will be the ESG for the climate action? It will be carbon reduction initiative. So if I'm a business running, I would focus on trying to do carbon reduction initiatives. It will be my action, which will directly affect climate action, right? So if 100 other companies do the same, then that's going to be a massive progression. Going back. And now, what is the business's role into SDGs? So we understand that we want to drive the ESG culture. So, but where does this have to come from? It needs to come from the top down. I mean, it's very important for everybody in the organization to have that culture. But the better is when your leadership is going to have that. If you have the buy-in from the leadership, it becomes very easy for you to make that transition of everybody in the organization to also think alike. So it has to be a business drive for sure. On to areas like innovation, infrastructure, and what's the impact that you're going to do. So this has to come from your leaders, right? So, and then what happens once you have that culture, you're able to make ethical decisions. So with those decisions, you're making the world a better place. So with that comes a balanced profit with also purpose, right? So now everybody in your organization is understands that we are not just here to work for the money, but we have a larger purpose or a larger goal. We are directly responsible to creating a better future for our children. So now that's the purpose. So so it needs to come from top to down. For example, I can give you ITC Limited, for example. They take up so many water positive initiatives. They do rural development. There's so many organizations. So now we've come out of the phase where there is no more the CSR is still there, but now we just do not limit ourselves from just saying that the corporate social responsibility lies only into making some small we set aside some money which we would want to give it out for an organization, like it's a volunteering opportunity. We buy things for a smaller maybe institutions, or we want to do something for an orphanage. It's just more than that now. So we've realized that we do not want to just do that a smaller impact, but we want to make bigger impacts, right? And we want to make an impact for everybody in the world. So now that's the focus like. So here now what happens is ESG is, so we've realized that ESG is starting with the leadership mindset, and it also requires balancing the profit with responsibility. So which means you're going to take you're going to take decisions which revolve around sustainability. You're going to take even the smallest of decisions, maybe things like, I do not want to waste paper by printing, could be like a small decision, but that kind of a mindset that you're creating for everybody in the organization is not just at work. It's going to be like a mindset that they're going to carry, and they're going to pass it on for everybody, right? It could, and also another example could be where I would say just maybe energy efficient solutions, or not using some of these organizations. If you've seen those multi-storied buildings, you'll have their lights and ACs running throughout the nights, whether you need it, whether you don't need it. So now we're not going to appreciate that. We're just because you have the money, or just because you say that I want my company to look bright all the time. No, now nobody's going to be appreciative of that fact. So they're going to say just shut down if it's not in use, right? We're going to use, we also have so many sensor-based lights and and also ACs based on requirement. So now that's directly adding on to your profitability, because your operational cost comes down. You're not going to be paying lakhs of rupees into just all of these operation related areas. And now that's adding to your profitability. So now, and also you're also making great decisions with respect to sustainability, right? So now that you have it all right now. So sometimes it actually requires that you're going to balance profit with responsibility, right? So leaders investing in sustainability despite initial higher costs, like, maybe I'm going to have solar panels installed. It'll be an initial high cost, but that there are long-term gains on that, right? So some of this will have to come from your leadership. So that's very important, and not just as leaders, but about everybody in the organization, right? So what are the practical actions that they're going to take? You should be able to measure your ESG metrics, set sustainability goals, integrate all your projects, integrate sustainability itself into all of your projects, or anything you do for that matter, and report transparently. So like I said, if you think that there is a risk, if you think that there is an employee engagement score that you want to share, go ahead and share it and say, but put actions associated with it, saying that, okay, this was my score, but this is what I want to do. So now with a strong ESG, companies are going to attract better talent and also better investors, right? So So I would also say start with energy tracking, waste reduction, and measure your ESG KPIs, right? So by designing energy efficient compressors or by reduced energy consumption, you're directly impacting your SDG. So which one would that be? SDG 13, your climate action, right? So that's how these are small things that you could do to directly move your sustainability into a strategic goal, and then which is actually your SDG, which is going to enable your ESG, which is actually going to enable the SDG impact. And we are also asking to say that the leadership is driving this change. And as everybody in the organization, it's very important for you to have that mindset of sustainability in everything and anything that you're going to do and drive, right? So with that, I would like to say that in the coming decade, organizations will not just be judged only by what they're going to produce, but also by the impact that they're going to create on the society and on the planet. So any questions so far? I know this was just like a basic overview, keeping the time in mind. Any questions? Anybody on the call or any feedback?
I feel it is quite insightful within this time span to understand the basics of ESG and why it is required, actually. Because that is all about forming this special council on WICCI. I think it will be cleared to all why ESG is required and the main component of ESG along with sustainability. How can we incorporate? Anybody wants to share anything or any other feedback?
अभी
Or
देखो ये हो गए थे फिर ज्यादा गीला ना हो गया
anyone else?
Yes, ma'am, it was wonderful. I'm a law student actually, and this helped me a lot. This semester, we also have environmental law. So, this is a chapter we have.
Dr. Sonia, could you please mute yourself? Yes, Saida.
Thanks,
Please continue.
Saida.
Yes, specifically for students also, it will be very beneficial, what I feel. And that is why this kind of sessions are being organized to spread awareness, actually. People are not very much aware of how to proceed with ESG and sustainability maintaining in their institutes or workplaces. So, anyone else?
Thank you, Shanoli ma'am, for the wonderful session. And yeah, it was great to go through the SDG pillars. And yeah, it was, we had some clarity, right, on that, how ESG and SDG is aligned. Yeah, and I look forward for more engaging sessions. Thank you.
In the coming days, we will be having more sessions.
Yes, thank you, Meenakshi ma'am. Wonderful session.
So, Meenakshi ma'am, could you please stop sharing? Then we can discuss in the open floor. Yes. Anything else? Or you can give some suggestions also. How can we actually make this platform more interactive on all? So I'll be looking forward to all this from you all, the more contributions on your part.